Hi, I'm Father Jim Martin, culture editor of America Magazine, and I'm here to talk to you today about the end times, something that we're commenting on in our current comment section in America Magazine this week. As you probably heard, around New Year's Day, 5,000 dead birds fell from the sky in Arkansas, and a few days later, 100,000 dead fish washed up on a shoreline in Arkansas as well. And then subsequently, there were dead fish discovered in Louisiana. There have been things all over the United States happening, and in fact, there have been 90 cases of mass fish and bird deaths in the last 6 months in the United States. And it's not just strange natural occurrences happening in the U.S. 100 tons of sardines and other fish washed up on Brazil's shoreline. There are reports of 150 tons of tilapia dying in Vietnam. Birds falling from the sky in Italy, New Zealand, hundreds of dead snapperfish washing ashore. It's very odd. And all on the internet you see all of these questions about, is this the apocalypse? Is this the end times? What's going on? Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the explanations that are behind some of these mass deaths and very odd incidences, two of them. And I'd also like to talk about some biblical understanding of the apocalypse. The two explanations that I've heard advanced that make the most sense are global warming, some sort of climatological change that are affecting some of these species. You have global warming. You also have predictions of what some scientists call a return of the Little Ice Age, a kind of period of dramatic cooling. And so that may explain some of these things. But there's also a journalistic explanation, what people call a case of over-reporting. Incidents that would not normally be linked are, thanks to the internet, linked immediately. And so while you might read about in the past, a couple fish dying in Arkansas, and then a few weeks later you read something else about something that happened, halfway across the world because it takes a while for the news to reach you. Now, with the internet, things are linked immediately. And so there are inferences drawn and confluences that are drawn between things that in the past, because of sort of slower reporting, would have been seen as unrelated. But what I'd like to really focus on are people who are worried about the apocalypse. Now, we know that a lot of fundamentalists and what would be more specifically called millennialists look to the book of Revelation, right, written by St. John, and try to sort of predict from the book of Revelation and some of the signs in the book of Revelation when the world is going to end. Now, Catholics are not fundamentalists when it comes to Scripture. And if you look at a good Scripture commentary, you'll find that the book of Revelation is primarily, it's based on the visions that St. John had, but it's primarily written to the people of his time. And so he's using sort of highly poetic images to talk about Rome, to talk about the city of God, to talk about Jesus, about God, about the people, and using them as a way of conveying a sense of hope for the people of his time, looking towards the future when God's reign would come. So it's really not supposed to be a kind of Nostradamus text. It's not something that you look at and say, this means this today. John is writing for people of his time based on his visions and trying to give them some sense of hope. So I think it's really unhelpful to look at Revelation as a kind of key to interpreting exactly what's happening, for example, with these birds. More important, I think, is to look at what Jesus Christ himself told us in the Gospels. He said, we will know neither the day nor the hour of the end times, of the apocalypse. Of course, Christians believe, Catholics believe, that, Christ will come again. There will be an end to this world. We say that every Sunday at Mass. Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. But we don't know when that's going to happen. Jesus says the end will come like a thief in the night in another place in the Gospels. And so, while it's important to look at Scripture very carefully, and to exegete and study the book of Revelation and all the books in the Bible, it's also important to have a stance of humility when it comes to these end times. We don't know when these things are going to happen. That's not to underplay the importance of mass deaths of fish and birds and all sorts of other wildlife, but it may not signal the end of the world as far as we know it. So I think it's good to look at Jesus whenever you're worried about these terrible events that are happening, and to remind ourselves of our own humility in the face of God's mysterious plans for us. For America Magazine, I'm Father Jim Martin. Thank you very much.